1 hour a week. That's it. But it can totally change how you live and work. We're talking about a blueprint, a master plan, to stop just reacting to your life and instead start actually architecting it with some real intention. So let me start with a question, and I bet this is going to hit close to home for a lot of you. Are you just busy, or are you actually effective? You know that feeling, right? You're constantly running, your calendar's jammed, the to-do list just never ends. But then Friday rolls around, and you're just wiped out, not fulfilled, just exhausted. That right there, that's the huge difference between being busy and truly being effective. And that's exactly where this whole idea starts. You know, it's funny. Aristotle figured this out thousands of years ago. He said excellence isn't about some big, grand, one-time thing. Nope, it's a habit. It's what you do over and over again. And the framework we're talking about today, it's that weekly ritual, that system for building the habit of excellence into your life. So what's the big time commitment here? What's the investment? You're probably thinking it's hours and hours, right? Well, it's just 60 minutes, 1 hour. That's it. Out of the 168 hours we all get every single week. And this is super important. This part isn't about productivity at all. It's about awareness. It's like you can't really plan where you're going until you take a second to honestly look at where you've just been. And this is where it gets really good. Look at these questions. They're not your typical what did I get done kind of questions. They're about how you felt and who you were. Questions like, how did I show up as my best self last week? Or what moment brought me the most energy? See, these connect you to your values, to what actually juices you up. This is that self-awareness that Aristotle was talking about, the stuff he called the beginning of all wisdom. All right, so once you've got that foundation of awareness, it's time to move into part two, what was talking about, the stuff he called the beginning of all wisdom. All right, so once you've got that foundation of awareness, it's time to move into part two, the compass. This is the biggest chunk of your hour, 25 minutes dedicated to planning. This is where you actually set the direction for the week ahead. You're literally pointing your compass where you want to go. And the core idea for this planning phase is something called the Trinity of Goals. I love this. Instead of just making a random, endless to-do list, you focus on just 3 main goals for the week. And the real magic is in the balance. It forces you to look at your whole life, not just, your work stuff. So goal number 1 is the one we all kind of default to, right? The professional or project goal. This is about your career, your business, a big project you're working on. It's that one key thing that, if you get it done, will really move the needle forward at work. Okay, next up, goal number 2 is personal growth. This one is all about you. It could be anything from learning a new skill to finally building that habit you've been talking about or taking a course. The point is to make sure you're actively investing in yourself every single week. And goal number 3, this one is so important. It's well-being or connection. This is your health, your relationships, your self-care. Think of this as the fuel. This is the goal that gives you the energy to actually achieve the other 2 without completely burning out. Okay, and this table is a perfect example of how you make a goal real. See, you don't just write down the wisdom check. You pause and you ask yourself that same question from the beginning. Am I just being busy or am I actually being effective? And this little chart here really lays it out. Are you just reacting to urgent stuff, feeling swamped, or are you making real progress on the important things you set out to do? This little check-in is your moment to get back on track if you need to. And this quote from the great Peter Drucker really nails it. He said, "Follow effective action with quiet reflection. From the quiet reflection will come even more effective action." This is so key. The whole process doesn't just end on Friday afternoon when you close your laptop. It ends with reflection. That's how you get better week after week. So on Friday, you do your wisdom harvest. And again, this isn't about beating yourself up over what you didn't do. It's about learning. So first, you celebrate 3 wins, no matter how small, to build that positive momentum. Then, for anything that was a challenge, you don't see it as a failure. You just ask, what was the lesson here? Then you pick one strength to carry into next week. And you set an intention for the weekend so you can actually unplug and recharge. This is how you get that compound interest on your personal growth. Okay, so we've walked through the how of this whole thing, but let's talk about the why. Why bother? Because the impact of this one single hour doesn't just stay in that hour. It creates these ripple effects that can honestly transform your entire week and over time, your entire life. And here are 5 of the biggest transformations you can expect. Number 1, you switch from reactive to proactive living. Huge. 2, you seriously reduce decision fatigue because you've already made the big choices for the week. 3, you start to recognize your own patterns. When you're most productive, what trips you up? 4, you build genuine confidence because you're keeping promises to yourself week in and week out. And number 5, maybe the most important, you start building this personal library of wisdom, a playbook of what actually works for you. Okay, so what's the first step? How do you actually turn all this talk into action? Because, the most important part of any blueprint is just laying that first brick. It's about taking that little spark of intention you might be feeling right now and turning it into something real. And I mean right now, not tomorrow, not next week when things calm down. Your journey begins the second you decide it's going to. So here's your take action assignment. It's just 3 super simple steps. First, and I mean literally do this now if you can, open your calendar and block out 60 minutes for this week. Just call it weekly blueprint or something. Second, grab your tool. Could be a plain old notebook or your favorite app, doesn't matter. And third, just decide where you're going to do this. Find a quiet spot. That's it. You've just laid the cornerstone. Look, it can feel like a lot. I get it. Thinking about transforming your whole life is overwhelming. But as Martin Luther King Jr. said, you don't have to see the whole staircase. You know that feeling, just take the first step. And that's all this is. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is just to start. Schedule that first hour. Plan that first week. The rest really will follow. Because at the end of the day, the person you want to become isn't built overnight. They're built week by week, one intentional hour at a time. So really, the question isn't, does this work? It's, will you give yourself the gift of actually starting? Because your future self, they're really, really going to thank you for it. It's like 4 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah.
You look at your calendar, you look at your to-do list, and you just get this sinking feeling of, where did the week actually go?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the week just happened to you rather than you really living it. I mean, you start Monday with these huge plans.
You're going to conquer the world.
Totally. But by Friday, you're just exhausted. You've got 42 tabs open, and you're not even sure what you actually accomplished.
It's the universal modern condition, I think. We're all drowning in activity, but, starving for real achievement. We're busy, for sure. But are we effective?
Right.
That's the question that haunts most of us.
That distinction, busy versus effective, that is exactly why I wanted to pull apart the source material we have today. Mm-hmm. We're doing a deep dive into the weekly growth blueprint, your master plan for excellence. Mm-hmm. Now, I got to be honest. When I first saw that title, my guard went right up. Yeah. I thought, oh, great. Another generic productivity hack.
Another checklist.
Exactly. Another list telling you to wake up at 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. But as I got into it, it felt different. It calls itself not a time management tool, but identity architecture.
And that is such a significant distinction. Most productivity advice is just about squeezing more speed out of a machine that's already broken.
Right. It's about efficiency.
It's about efficiency. This blueprint is about fixing the machine itself. It's about effectiveness. The whole idea here is that you need a dedicated, almost sacred space to align what you do every day with who you actually want to be long term.
Identity architecture. I really, really like that. So the mission for this deep dive is to unpack this very specific 1-hour weekly ritual. The promise is pretty bold.
Definition, reactive. You're responding to emails, to Slack messages, to other people's emergencies. You're basically letting everyone else set your priorities for the week.
You're inheriting your week.
You're inheriting it. And this ritual, it's designed to reduce that decision fatigue. By separating the planning part from the doing part, you save all your mental energy for the actual work.
That idea of separating planning from doing, it seems so simple, but it's crucial. It's the difference between being the architect and the builder.
You can't be both at the same time.
Not without losing your mind. So let's get into the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
The blueprint breaks this hour down into 4 parts. And the first part, the first 10 minutes, is all about preparation and reflection.
And this is where so many people will roll their eyes and try to skip ahead, but the source is really adamant. You can't just open a spreadsheet in the middle of chaos. You have to set the stage.
The text gets really specific here. It suggests creating a ritual, like light a candle, play some instrumental music, make a special tea. It sounds a little woo-woo at first.
I get it.
Is the candle really necessary to be productive? Or is that just fluff?
It's not about the candle itself. It's about the psychological trigger. It's about context switching.
Oh, okay.
If you try to plan your life in that same frazzled, cortisol spiked state you're in when you're answering urgent emails, you're just going to make a frazzled plan.
Makes sense.
The sensory details, the smell, the sound, it all.
And more about the signal to your brain. Okay, we're shifting gears now. And obviously the source says you have to unplug, no notifications.
0. You need what the source calls stillness. You start with some breathing just to clear the mental static. And once you're in that headspace, the blueprint gives you 3 connection questions to ask yourself.
And these are not your standard, did I hit my KPIs kind of
Okay.
questions. They felt more like conversation starters with yourself. The first one is, how did I show up as my best self last week?
And notice the phrasing there. It doesn't ask, what did you finish?
Right.
It asks about your behavior, your character. It's a positive psychology anchor. Instead of immediately looking at what went wrong, which just triggers shame, you reinforce the identity of the person you actually want to be.
You prime the brain for success. Establish the win first. Okay, the second question is, what moment brought me the most energy or fulfillment? I found this one really interesting because it's a filter for what you actually enjoy versus what you just tolerate.
Exactly. We often think we know what energizes us, but the data, our actual experience, might tell a different story. You might realize the highlight of your week wasn't the big presentation. It was mentoring a junior colleague for 20 minutes.
But my absolute favorite is the third one. It's a visualization exercise. If last week were a chapter of my life story, what would its title be?
That one requires a level of honesty that can be pretty confronting.
Oh, absolutely. I tried this. My title wasn't exactly the hero's journey. It was more like the Great Procrastination Part 2. But the text gives examples like the momentum shift or the fog.
It lets you step out of being the protagonist and into the role of the narrator. Ladder, leaning against the wrong building, you've just wasted all that energy.
Totally.
So the blueprint suggests you briefly revisit.
Totally.
So the blueprint suggests you briefly revisit your 90-day or your annual vision. And you ask, what one step this week would get me closest to that vision? It grounds the weekly grind in a much larger purpose.
Okay, so you're grounded, you set your goals, but the source is super strict here.
Yeah.
It warns against that laundry list, that piece of paper with 35 things on it.
Mhm.
It asks for the trinity of goals.
And that constraint is the magic. I mean, cognitive science shows our working memory is limited. If everything is a priority, then
Nothing is.
nothing is. So the source demands 3 goals, one in each of 3 specific domains: professional, personal growth, and well-being.
Let's flesh those out because personal growth and well-being can get ignored in favor of work. So professional is easy. Submit the Q1 marketing report.
Right. But for personal growth, the source says it has to be a skill or a habit for you, not for your employer. Something like complete 3 lessons of Spanish or read 50 pages of that book on your shelf.
It's about investing in yourself.
It is. And the third one, well-being and connection. This isn't just sleep more. It's specific actions. Date night with my partner. Hit the gym 3 times.
It forces a balanced diet of achievement if you only have professional goals.
You might have a great career, but you'll have a miserable life. This structure prevents you from just binging on work and starving everything else.
Okay, so this is where the blueprint gets technical. And I think this is maybe the most valuable part of the whole thing. Most of us write down right proposal, and then we stop. The system calls for the architecture of action.
This is the game changer. The source says, don't just write the goal. Break it down into 2 or 3 specific tasks. But then, and this is the bit everyone skips, you have to assign each task a specific day, estimate the time, and identify potential obstacles.
That obstacle part, it seems kind of counterintuitive. Why focus on the negative before you even start? Isn't that discouraging?
Not at all. It's actually borrowed from a psychological concept called implementation intentions, or if-then planning.
Okay.
Optimism is great for setting goals, but you need realism to execute them. If you just say, I'll write the proposal, you are not prepared for reality.
The example in the text is super clear on this. It says, Monday, outline structure, 60 minutes. Obstacle, distraction-prone afternoon.
See, by naming the obstacle distraction-prone afternoon, you
Yeah.
can actually strategize against it. You might decide, okay, if Monday afternoon is dangerous, I will disconnect the internet for that hour.
You're playing chess against your future self.
You are. You're playing chess against your future self's weaknesses. You know future you is going to want to check Instagram. Current you is setting a trap to stop that.
And the example also lists resources. Like for Wednesday, it says draft sections 1 to 3. Resource, research notes.
That prevents the friction of starting. I mean, how many times have you sat down to write something, realized you didn't have the data, and then
an hour later, you're on Wikipedia reading about the Roman Empire.
too many times? It's a rabbit hole. So by identifying the resource you need beforehand, you make sure that when Monday comes, you just execute. You're removing all the friction.
So we've planned our Monday, we've got our trinity of goals, we've mapped out the obstacles, but we all know what happens next.
Right? Reality.
Wednesday rolls around, and the plan gets punched in the face. A meeting runs long, a kid gets sick.
And this is the failure point for most systems. People think, well, I failed, the plan is ruined, I'll just try again next Monday. It's what psychologists call the what the hell effect.
The what the hell effect. I like that. But the blueprint anticipates this. It introduces the Wednesday check-in or the navigation.
It's just a 10-minute pit stop. You don't redo the whole plan, you just check your coordinates. What's ahead of schedule, what's stalled. It prevents that all or nothing slide.
And there's a specific wisdom check question in here that really cuts deep. It asks, am I being busy or being effective?
That question is a razor. We often use busyness, clearing the inbox, reorganizing files, as a shield to avoid the hard, effective work. This check-in lets you catch yourself. Maybe you push a task to next week. Maybe you ask for help. It turns a failed week into an adjusted week.
It's the difference between throwing away the map because you missed a turn and just rerouting. So you navigate through the week, and then we get to the wisdom harvest, the Friday review.
This is the final 15 minutes, and the source quotes Peter Drucker here. Follow effective action with quiet reflection. This is the part that turns all that experience into actual growth.
It starts with celebration. But I noticed it cautions against just checking off completed tasks. It asks for wins, which feels like a subtle but important difference.
It's huge. A win could be a moment of courage. Maybe you didn't finish the project, but you finally had that difficult conversation you've been avoiding for months. That's a win.
Right.
The source quotes Oprah, "The more you praise and celebrate your life, the more there is in life to celebrate." You're basically training your brain to scan for the good stuff, not just the fires.
But you can't ignore the bad stuff.
Yeah.
The next step is learning extraction. It's basically a failure analysis, but the framework is really important to avoid that shame spiral.
Yes, the text distinguishes between two types of barriers, external factors and internal responses. That distinction is vital.
Can we break those down? Because I feel like I usually just lump it all into I messed up. What's the difference?
An external factor is something outside your control. The internet went out, my boss called an emergency meeting. An internal response is your reaction to things, procrastination, perfectionism, avoidance.
That distinction is huge. Because if you don't know the difference, you can't fix the right problem. If it was external, you need a contingency plan.
Exactly. But if it was internal, like procrastination, you need a totally different strategy. If you blame yourself for the internet going out, you're just being mean. If you blame the internet for your procrastination, well, you're lying to yourself.
It's about finding one small adjustment for next week, not beating yourself up.
Exactly. And the review ends with integration. Setting an intention for the weekend, asking, what's one thing I can do this weekend that will nourish me?
It closes the loop.
It acknowledges you need to refuel. You start with rest, you plan, execute, navigate, review, and then you return to rest.
Now, I know some listeners are thinking, I'm not a journaling person, or I live in my calendar, I'm not carrying a notebook. The source actually addresses this. It offers tools for different personality types.
Yeah, they categorize these nicely. First up is the analog artist. This is for the stationary addicts, the people who think better with a pen in hand.
The source suggests, colored pens, sticky notes, mind maps. If making it pretty keeps you engaged, do that. Don't fight your nature.
Then you have the digital architect. This is for people living in Notion or Evernote. You build a template, you use hyperlinks. It's all clean and searchable.
And for those who are rolling their eyes at both of those and just want to get it done, there's the minimalist.
The minimalist is just ruthless efficiency, a single index card. Use the 3-2-1 method, 3 goals, 2 priorities, 1 focus. That's it. It proves you don't need a fancy system, you just need intention.
The source also touches on accountability.
Yeah.
You can do it solo, with future self-journaling, or with a partner. But I think the most important caveat in the whole text is the part on seasonal adjustments.
I'm so glad you brought that up. It quotes Ecclesiastes. To everything, there is a season. It's a reminder that your energy cycles change. Maybe Friday afternoon is a terrible time for you to plan. Maybe you're brain dead.
Maybe it's Sunday night with a glass of wine.
Or Monday morning, first thing. And life seasons change too. If you have a newborn or you're in a massive sprint at work, your planning has to look different.
The blueprint is flexible. It's
Yeah.
meant to support you, not box you in.
The tool grows with you.
So we've covered a lot here, from the woo-woo candles to the tactical if-then planning. But so what? Why should someone actually carve out this hour when they already feel behind?
The source comes back to the compound effect. It uses that imagery of water shaping stone over time. It's not about having one perfect week where you do everything flawlessly.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It's about the cumulative effect of 50 imperfect but conscious weeks. The source says it really clearly. The destination is the person you are becoming.
It's identity work disguised as time management.
That's it exactly. It changes how you see yourself from someone who just scrambles to someone who designs their own life.
Okay, so we're not going to lead just with the theory. The source has a very specific take action assignment. And I want to challenge everyone listening to do this right now.
Or as soon as you're not driving.
Yes, please. Open your calendar right now. Block out 60 minutes, sometime between now and next Monday morning.
And label it My Growth Blueprint, Week 1.
Treat it like a non-negotiable appointment with your future self. Even if you don't do the candles the first time, just secure the time.
And remember that final thought the text leaves us with, that great quote from Martin Luther King Jr. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step.
You don't need to have your whole life figured out. You just need to plan next week.
One conscious week at a time.
Go block that hour. That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.